for joining us. This is part one of a webinar series that we're doing and kind of calling from shift to invoice, really focusing on that entire workflow of security operations. And today we're focusing in on the shift part of that workflow with how to get better shift coverage in less time with the scheduling capabilities. All right. So, if you haven't joined one of our webinars in a while, I am Kara Hendricks, Product Marketing here at TrackForce, and I'm joined by Moody Taylor Klein, our resident product expert and Senior Solutions Architect. So he is going to be walking us through the platform and talking to us, answering a lot of your questions, and showing us kind of how to get the most out of the platform. All right. So today is all about, like I said, it's all about scheduling with TrackTik. So the majority of the session, we're going to be spending walking through the platform, showing you some different use cases of how it works and how it's helping many of our other customers today. We're also going to leave time for Q&A at the end of the session. But at any time, if you think of a question, you have a question, you want to make sure you don't forget it, put it into the Q&A panel in Zoom. You should be able to see Q&A. You can type in a question and submit it, and we'll be going through all of those questions at the end and making sure that we answer as many as possible. All right. So before I pass things on to Moody to walk us through the platform, I wanted to first just ground us in some actual results when TrackTik scheduling is used alongside our core guarding tours, checkpoints, and patrol capabilities. So I have a question for all of you. Don't sit back and relax just yet. If you could take a second to answer our poll, how much time are you spending on scheduling per week? And maybe if it's not you, maybe if it's kind of a collective group, but how much time per week is really allocated towards scheduling? Thinking about filling vacant shifts, creating the schedule, making changes as people maybe don't show up or show up late or call in sick. Tracking down guards with the right skills. Do we need an armed guard at this position instead? And making sure that that person has an up-to-date licensure and is properly certified to fulfill those duties. And then lastly, think about monitoring overtime as well. All right. All right, so it looks like we have some pretty good variability in the polls. Super interesting. We have a handful of people kind of all across the board. A number, even a handful saying that they're spending over 40 hours a week on scheduling. And so that's incredible. Majority, it looked like, are in that 10 to 20, 20 to 30 range. So now I want to think about this another way. And so now I have another question for you. This one actually has a right answer. Let's see how many of you can guess the right answer to this one. How much time savings do you think TrackTik customers see with scheduling on average? We did a survey later last year and got responses from over 400 TrackTik users asking them kind of percentages of time savings on scheduling. And so, what do you think that percentage time savings was on average for TrackTik users? All right. And I'll reveal the answer. Majority said 39 or 58. So the answer is 58%. And so if you think about what you said in the first question, I'm spending 20 hours, 30 hours a week on scheduling, cut that in half because that's the type of efficiency gains that we're talking about today when everything is, you know, connected. Because the advantage with TrackTik is kind of that end-to-end solution. Today, a lot of you are likely using our core guarding capabilities and reporting capabilities, maybe even our mobile patrol, taking advantage of things like checkpoints and guard tours and geofencing, and report templates. But that leaves scheduling really disconnected from skills and license management and overtime tracking, which I'm sure you know isn't just a burden on your time, but also leaves a lot of room for error when you're managing separate tools, manual processes, and maybe even doing, just a lot of copy and paste in multiple places. And then, not to mention, when you get to the, billing part of the workflow, if the number of hours you're invoicing the client for doesn't match their contracted agreement or the actual time clocked by the guard, that can raise red flags for your client. And so that's a lot of what we're talking about. So today is all about scheduling. And then actually, part two next week is going to be all about that second half, that billing and invoicing workflow. So join us next week also. But that's the real advantage of the TrackTik platform is kind of that full solution for your entire workflow in managing your operation from scheduling, guard tours, reporting, and billing, focusing in on less errors, fewer missed checkpoints, better reports, and then massive time savings overall everywhere in the process. All right. So I know a lot of you already know that. Most of you are existing clients, but I know that some of you are using different parts of the product, different less. So I just want to make sure that, we're all going into this with the same information. All right. So I'm going to be passing it over to Moody here to walk us through three core scheduling capabilities in the platform. We're going to be diving into scheduling templates so you're not rebuilding a schedule from scratch every week. How can we make that a repeatable workflow every week? We're going to be talking about shift vacancies. How are we finding the right guard for an open shift? Not just the first one that might be available. Are they the right person to manage the job at this site for those responsibilities? We want to make sure that's the case. And then lastly, attendance watch. So we want to give you that bird's eye view so you have visibility into every shift in real time and can resolve issues fast before your client sees that as a problem. Okay, so all right, I'm going to pass it over to Moody. Over to you.
Thanks, Kara.
Awesome.
All right. Um, Thanks, and great to have everybody on the call today. We'll definitely be looking forward to being as efficient with your time so you can see the value that our scheduling platform will allow for. So as Kara mentioned, we're going to talk about templates. So this is our workspace for scheduling. So for those of you who are using our platform, you can see that this is your sort of workspace for you to do all things related to scheduling. Our templates are set up in a way to make sure that you're not plotting in using any Excel sheets or things like that to kind of constantly update. Our system will give you a nice clear view of those details. Where do those details come from? Well, they come from these templates that you set up in the system one time and then have it roll. With all of the green that has templates, you can see the detailed hours that have been planned for, the number of shifts, which ones need to publish, and of course, any of the vacant shifts that you might have by design or have recently become vacant due to any considerations with your client's request. Our templates do give you the flexibility to make sure you can have the right patterns for the right details. And as Kara mentioned on our next webinar, we're going to talk a lot more about the contractual obligations. But if we're just looking at the labor costs, you can actually see by the selections of different individuals how much your labor will impact from those decisions for your templates. So when you want to make changes, when you're hiring, you can actually look at that in real time on the template view. This template view also gives you the flexibility to make sure that you don't have to worry about any skills or any details around whether someone's qualified because it'll automatically limit those that can be assigned to different positions if the individuals are not qualified. Lastly, one of the things that's really important about the template setup is that we do have the flexibility to create new ones for future dates. So obviously we're getting into the summer season. Most people don't want to be in an office. They want to be at a pool or a beach somewhere. So your clients might have new demands on how you manage the pools or how you manage the parks. So you can set up your schedules in the future and make whatever adjustments, whether you're adding guards on the weekend or removing guards in the weekday, and then those will automatically populate. What that looks like in the prepared view, you have a detailed view of all of the individual hours and details and where your impacts and where some warnings come up. So you can just manage those exceptions. So when conflicts come up due to switches or due to details, you've got quick hits where you can select and actually decide who you want to pick to detail with those. Considering for your overtime and any other considerations, any employees that might not be qualified, you've got all these at your fingertips to make sure that you can make the right decision at the right time and be more efficient with managing your operations. For moving over to our vacancies, because of course, like I said, we've got a lot of vacancies that we may want to check. Obviously, it is the season where some people might be calling in sick because there is just a definite day off and a time where you might want to have with your family. So those vacant shifts become really important to manage in a timely manner. For some of your clients, it's critical because unmanned post is just not part of the contract and can't be managed. For those, we go back to our main workspace view. So like I said, in the workspace view, we've got the flexibility to be able to see where we're impacted by vacant shifts. Now, this view is really important because you can also look at it from the perspective of anything in the future. So with fall coming faster than we ever want it to be, you can also check to see where you're exposed for the amount of hours that you might have to plan for, and if there are greater vacants based on people taking vacation, people having different time, people having different details. So having this visibility in advance can allow you to manage your schedule for anything that happens in the future. So what we have as our solution for that is we've got our live schedule view, which is our workspace, and all of these many filters that some of you may be using and for others looking forward to use, where you can track all the vacant onlys to be able to quickly see where you're exposed and which shifts to kind of train for and to adjust for. We also have the flexibility to manage anything that might be representative of any overtime. So you might be wanting to look at and see how you can manage not only those that are vacant, but maybe expose people that might be working too much and you might want to limit their time. So from both of these filters, this will give you the flexibility that when you do have to deal with any vacant shifts, like if you're looking for a particular client that you know you've got a vacant shift that you want to deal with, you can quickly select that. And with our replace view, you'll have the system pre-select a list based on the criteria for that actual position that you want to actually deal with. Now, the advantage of that is that you can look to see where your overtime impact is. You can also look to see the distance between the destinations if you put the address of the employee in. So you'll be able to select the correct individual, notify that individual to that shift, and any sort of notes that you want to put in quick order. By doing those details and putting in the details in one go, you have the flexibility now to not have to worry that you got to call around, set something up in WhatsApp, send a couple of texts around, but that information is quickly updated for the system. And then the advantages in your system when you're looking over here, you've got your detail and you've got your updated shift ready to go. Now let's move over to where we come to the most important part. You've got your schedule set up. It's the most optimal it can be. Now it's time to monitor and make sure that those activities take place. The first place we do, as I said, staying in your workplace is our dashboard. Our dashboard view here gives you a quick view of everything that you should be focused on when you come into work as a workspace. So you've got your total hours for the day, you've got vacant shifts that you may need to deal with in the next 24 hours. You've also got your punch in details and your exceptions. This is the first place that'll give you the flexibility to see what you have to be mindful of, such as late shifts that are coming in. The second area we have is what we refer to as our attendance watch. Different view, same details. This will give you the flexibility to see not only your late shifts, but actually the progression of shifts, whether some individuals miss some certain checks for safety, or whether some individuals have yet to clock in. These types of exceptions give you a greater view and visibility of what's happening in real time so that you can make better decisions on how to deal with any of those exceptions that come into play. And then lastly, for those shift supervisors that have to manage larger operations, you don't have to leave your main screen because your attendance watch will give you the same details from the main view, along with your late shifts and any other sort of expiring skills or details relevant to maintain your operations. We're giving you the flexibility to be able to just focus on what matters and let the exceptions dictate your actions. This leads me to one of the great new features coming soon for us that'll be able to curate more the experience for some of those people that do manage shifts and need to get that data to give the reporting details to their managers or other people that are responsible, including their customers. Our new shift supervisor dashboard will give you the quick flexibility to see quick and detailed information, but also give you more relative details in aggregate of all the overtime hours that might be impacting your operations. Some of these new dashboards that we'll be releasing will give you more flexibility to take advantage of all the great data coming from scheduling. So look out for that in the future, but we're really excited about it. I think it's going to make a big difference in how people do their work and how they get their data to the people that matter. All right. Well, that's it for this part of the presentation. Back to you, Kara.
Awesome. And yeah, that new dashboard is really cool. So stay tuned for a little bit more. Next week, we're going to be coming out with a couple new dashboards for all customers. And so this will be something it's while you can kind of see on the screen that it's in Moody's demo environment, that it's in a data lab tab and they're powered by that, we're making some of these pre-built dashboards available to all customers. And so I'm curious to see um, everyone's feedback on that when those get released next week. And we will take it from there. Moody, are you ready to move into questions and Q&A at this point?
Absolutely. Actually, you know what? I did forget one small thing because I realized it's not in everyone's pocket, but it should be, which is our Shift application.
Oh,
So if you can
yeah.
still see my screen,
Perfect.
I just wanted to highlight that our Shift application is at the heart of how we build and how we make sure that your employees know their schedule, which is obviously a big part of the attendance watch. So just as a reminder, with the Shift application, which is part of your module for scheduling, your employees will be able to put their schedule on their device and have the flexibility to see all of their shifts relative to when they're working, and also keep an eye on any expiries that might be coming up. And of course, if they're already working, they'll be able to see when they should be taking their break, when they should be clocking out. And of course, if they did want to pick up any open shifts, those open shifts in real time can be sent to them where they can select it. So this is one of the other tools that are handy for your supervisors to know that those details are relative and easy. And at the same time, they will have their timesheets at their disposal so that you don't get in many text messages or emails or phone calls wondering what shifts they were covered, what shifts they didn't do.
Perfect. And Moody, I think I'm going to have you actually just keep sharing your screen
Sure.
in case we want to kind of show something in the platform to help answer questions. And so now would be a great time to submit any questions that you have into the Q&A panel. And it looks like they're coming in. So we'll try and answer as many questions as we can. So one that just came in is what is the discrepancy button in the prepare area? Yeah,
Yeah.
seeing it on your screen, view discrepancies. What, tell us more about that.
Yeah, no problem. And definitely, we've been building so much, and apologies for those that have our system and they're wondering what's this red button for excitement. So this is our discrepancy button. What we noticed is we did have a lot of people that said to us, I'm managing all my skills, but one of the things that's a little tricky is that I'm not sure when they're actually going to expire, if that's going to impact the schedule. So we came up with this discrepancy convention, which meant that if someone's skill was going to expire in a month based on your view, it'll actually flag that to let us know that in the future, this person's shift will probably be a problem because their expiry isn't there or renewal. So this is sort of a watch out so that you don't have a scenario where people are actually just scheduling blindly and they don't know when that person's expiry will come up. So we're going to give you those flags for discrepancies based on any scheduled period. So you'll be able to always have that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that was perfect. And I think important to keep an eye on how those different skills and licenses can impact your scheduling. Um, all right, so keep submitting your questions. I'm curious, I think you covered this, Moody, but one question is how does how does the platform enforce overtime rules and kind of like labor law kind of compliance? Um, how does that play into how we're scheduling and how I can monitor that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things that's important as you see some of these little interventions of overtime that we show up on this main view is the critical piece. We're really what's important for us here at TrackForce is that we can make sure that your time and labor are managed effectively and efficiently for the live operations. So the best way we can do that is to give you that insight as early as possible. So if you look over here, you'll see that for this view, we've got about 96 hours of overtime implicated for this week alone. So that should be the first insight for any time the actual shift or schedules are being managed in live. But like I mentioned earlier, those are some insights that you can have well ahead of time while you're actually in the planning phase so that you can basically make better decisions around what you're going to be doing for your different customers and for your ship supervisors who might be managing different locations. So as an example, when we go into the prepared view, you're always going to have those same details as to what impact of your overtime will be for whatever period that you have in the system. So if you're looking at the system and you're looking to see what overtime you might see, you'll be able to see that quickly in this view here. So we trust and make sure that any of the employees that you have that are managing are always being aware of that. And this goes back to our new coming soon job dashboard. So that job view is really what's important so that you can monitor and track any trends, basically see by different customer type where you're really impacted by overtime. By having that flexibility to have the data that you're monitoring here, you'll be able to make those decisions whether it's really a true blue time to start hiring or there's a better optimization to have with your customer about your pricing.
That's super helpful. Okay, we're getting some more questions coming in. This is from Tina from Royce. Can we get steps on how to enable the SMS text feature? Okay, that's question one. And then she's also wondering if we get employees who always accept shifts but never really show up, can we block them in some way from that workflow? Or what's the best way to handle that?
Yeah, for sure. So if you want to remove any employee from that ability to actually pick up shifts because they're constantly blocking, there are some ways to do that, and we can definitely you can definitely reach out to our support team and your CS, and we can walk you through some options around that. When it comes to the SMS settings, we do know that for some of our clients, they may not really require or need to use SMS. So it is an on and off switch that we have in our features. And so if you do want to enable that, you can definitely talk with your CS or your support team and they'll certainly be able to help you set that up for you.
Perfect. All right. So if you want to enable that, send a quick email to support and or your CSM if you have one, and they will help you out. Get that turned on. All right. All right. Next question. Um, okay. How do you turn off a template schedule temporarily? The example, this is from Scott, kind of say for school officers during summer, you want to use the same template, but only, 9 months out of the year.
That's a great question, Scott. And I think one of the things to really remind people is that one of the things we did preliminarily to make sure that templates are effective, and also once you build it, you don't want to feel like you've lost it, is that these templates will go as far as you want them to go only when they're published. So one of the things that a lot of our clients will do is they may archive their actual position as an option for when they only need a certain template to be active for a certain period of time, and others will just not publish once the actual summer season comes up. So you've got two options as always. So with your position, you can set a date to actually close this if you actually want it, and then bring it back when you need it. Or you can leave your template the way it is, and then once you're actually done with that cycle, you do not have to publish it for the periods that you don't need it. And that's the nice part for your employees is it reduces the noise, so they don't see some skills or shifts like your Excel files we're probably dealing with, where they're always seeing stuff that doesn't apply to them. This way, we're keeping them focused on what their work is and what their work isn't.
Perfect. All right. Um, Let's go to, okay, so this person has a question about kind of expanding on that like discrepancies button that we were
Hmm.
talking about. They're asking about, there's a tile on the landing page dashboard on kind of the main dashboard that says vacated due to expired skills. Is that
Yes.
related to this discrepancy concept or is that different?
You got it. Just different colors, same reason. So it'll go red once there is a number there. So thankfully I've been taking care of my portal very well, so I don't have any vacated shifts, which is really the benefit of TrackTik. So yes, it'll go red and it'll give you the same details on the main view here.
Perfect. All right. Um, Next question is about, okay. Blocking clock-ins and clock-outs outside of the geofence. Where is that setting? How can they turn that on?
Yeah, no problem. So for those that do have the correct permissions to go in and access, we do have that from our mobile restrictions area within whatever location your employees are working. So whether the employees are working at a zone level, if they're patrol officers, or if they're working at a site level, which is more appropriate for clock-in locations, you can set them here. So you can set the permit and block for both the clock in and also for the clock out.
Perfect. Hopefully that was helpful. You saw those steps. All righty. Next question is around the call log functions within. All right, so that's more of a suggestion than a question. So I'll take that back to if you submitted that around the call log functions, I'll make sure that gets relayed to our product team on some suggestions and feature requests. Okay, next question from Christopher. Um, says when sending SMS shift offers, they can be sent all at once or in sequence. Can a timer be set on the sequence rather than waiting for people to decline the shift before sending the next offer?
Yeah, that's a good question and good feedback. There is no timer for the time in between. There is just a sequence of first, second, third for those people that would have it. So if you were to actually do it here, I can just walk you through a little bit of that, what that looks like, for you to be able to see that. Oh, we've only got one. Let's add a couple more people to that. And just as a reminder, you are able to search through based on the rates of pay. You can also search whether they've worked at the site a lot, and of course, a couple of other things that you can do. So this is actually kind of where it becomes a little more fun. So if we've got a couple of people, let me see if there's more. I'll add a couple more people, and we go to the offer by SMS. So the interval of 10 minutes between each one will allow you to kind of set it up, but you don't have the ability to kind of know like who's gonna sort of hit it first, second, third. So it'll just take 10 minutes. So someone will get it, the next person will get it 10 minutes later, the next person will get it 10 minutes later. So if you do want to set the timer, you can, but in terms of the order of who you want to select first, there isn't a way to kind of set that, if that was your question.
Yeah,
So
I
hopefully
think
that answered.
Yeah, I think that covered the question. If it didn't, submit a second question and we can provide some clarification. But other than that, I'm going to move on to another question that we have for sick calls. Other than replacing the individual, is there a tracker or way to note that book off this, yeah, sick call in a schedule? Um, we know we
Yep.
can have shift notes, but trying to review shifts and notes on employee, is there another option we're missing? I think to mark that shift as called out sick or something like that and keeping track of that. Sounds like
Oh,
a
yeah,
question.
that sounds like a good question. So one of the things you do have, and you'll see that actually in some of these, they have these things that are known as flags. So these are flags that we can set up in the system, mostly for payroll, so that you do want to sort of recognize some sort of shift in a certain way. So if you do have a scenario where someone's calling in sick and the shift is not to pay, you can create flags for that, which would be a sick no pay. And when you do that, one of the advantages you'll have is you'll be able to recognize that and obviously be able to have reporting capabilities where you can report on how many shifts someone had while they were sick. For more details on that, you can definitely refer to our support page on setting up these flags for your shift.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it from yeah, from reading their question, it sounds like that would cover it. All right. One more question. Is there a tab within the system that will show separate officers by their respective levels? How can they kind of identify their different officers and guards level one, level two, level three? How do they incorporate that?
Yeah, that's actually that's a pretty good question. It's also probably a little bit more advanced, but in short, we do have something called the employee class or employee classification. So this is a way where you can basically define future officers based on the classifications they may have. So maybe someone's at a lieutenant level or at a different level. So in that, you can actually use our classifications, and then you can actually filter by them whenever you're looking at it from the system here. So in our system for the settings, for those of you who have access to it, you'll be able to go in and actually create your own classes. And when you create your own classes, you'll be able to put the name, and those names you'll be able to filter so you can see by classifications which employees have that. That's one of the simplest way to do that. The other way that some of our clients typically do when they have different classification for employees is they simply just use their title for their jobs. So if you want to look up the lieutenants versus the managers, you can just simply do that. And then that'll give you your dedicated list.
Perfect. All right. And we got a question about will this be recorded? Yes, this is being recorded. We will follow up with the recording so you can come back to review it. I want to take maybe one or two more questions and then I think we're gonna wrap up for today. These are amazing questions and I really appreciate uh, just all of the interaction. One question, Moody, if you make changes to your schedule, is it necessary to publish again, or is there some auto publish that can happen each night? What do they have to do for that?
Once it's published, it's published, it's published. So that's the good part. So you don't necessarily have to go back, again, back to our automation. We definitely want to make sure that you don't have to perform some repeatable actions for making any changes. So the nice thing about your schedules, whenever you do have to make any changes to any of those details, so as an example, whether I'm adding someone to a particular schedule and I put them on here, this will now be live in the system. So there isn't any need to publish this again. When it's solid, it means that it's published. Versus the future, when it's still in process to be planned for, it looks like this.
Okay. And all right, perfect. That answers that. And then we got a clarification from the person that was asking about the different leveling of officers.
Mhm.
Um, but how can they manage in the schedule of if they are armed, unarmed, PPO? How is that identified in the schedule?
Oh, that's a great question, or follow-up. So one of the things we did is if you do have requirements for those positions to hold those particular skills or particular certifications, we recommend using our actual skills function. So one of the things that's been really important for us is to make sure compliance is the most important. Your customers expect qualified professional officers, and we want to deliver that for you. So any one of the skills that you have, you can make those blockers for them to be actually scheduled. So whether that's actually a hard skill or a soft skill, for those of you who know our system pretty well, if it's a blocker for scheduling, it means that they won't allow to be scheduled whenever that may be expired or whenever that's actually not attained. So that's one of the best ways I would say if you're trying to make sure that you've got a lieutenant working a position for a lieutenant versus a security officer working a position for a security officer. And we can definitely show you more within our with your CS or with the support team how best you can use that. And just going back to our discrepancy, that's part of the reason why we built out the discrepancy. Because if you've got these standards that you want to maintain, our discrepancy is the best way to manage that so that your scheduling is still efficient.
Perfect. I hope that answered your question, Mark. All right. So I think that's all the questions that we have time for today. Great questions, everybody. This was an awesome discussion. I loved how much interaction we had today. Thank you for joining. Just to wrap up, one last thing is that next week, same day, same time next week, we will be doing our part two of this webinar series all around the invoicing and billing workflow. So when you think about, okay, we're scheduling, we're tracking, clock ins, clock outs, how do we automate how those hours worked get properly billed to the client? And having that end-to-end workflow. That is what we're going to be focusing on next week. So I really hope that you join us for that session as well. Again, this is being recorded, so we will follow up with everyone who joined us today with the recording. And all right. I think that is, oh, one last thing. When you close, when you leave the webinar today, a survey in Zoom is going to pop up. Let us know, give us some feedback, what you thought of the session today. I believe there's also a question if you'd like us to follow up with you about scheduling, if you wanted to have a deeper conversation around it. And so look out for that and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot.